Well, I'll begin by thanking everyone again who was involved with empowering Africa, the opportunity to be here and to initiate this podcast with one of the great leaders in the whole African ecosystem, Tommy Davies. So I'm privileged and honored to hear his story, learn more about what's happening in that region of the world, and how to bring awareness for other venture capitalists, other angel investors to get involved in what's happening in that part of the world. So without further ado, I want to introduce himself, Mr. Tony Davies, aka TD. How are you doing, sir?
I'm exceedingly well, thank you.
Great to see you, my friend. Great to see
Good
you.
to see you.
Yeah. We had the privilege of meeting you the other day and hearing a little bit more about your story. I want to kind of start this conversation off with the theme of the show, and which is all about betting on yourself. And I want to ask you, what has it meant for you to bet on yourself over the years?
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that one. It's I wasn't. The honest truth, betting on myself is actually betting on God Almighty, because it is from Him I draw all strength. Everything I do, my whole being, I am just an expression of God. That is how I perceive myself. So I've at a stage in life where I have come to recognize that all the achievements have been incremental and in a particular direction, not by my doing, but by His. And everybody that knows me knows that, and it's not about being religious either. So my apologies to those who, are whooping hallelujahs right now. I'm sorry, that's not what I'm talking about.
It's powerful, and me and you have that aligned with our core values. Can you think back to a moment that you took a major bet on yourself? Obviously, being a man of faith. What was there a moment, even as a teenager or as a young man, that you made a major risk on you?
Well, this is a story I don't think I've ever told, actually. So even my kids don't know this. But I had been told by my dad that he was no longer going to fund me because I had decided I wanted to study in the United States. And as far as he was concerned, the United Kingdom, which is where I now live, funnily enough, was sort of what was a better. So I actually managed to get an aunt of mine to buy me a ticket, and a girlfriend's dad gave me the cash, and I went ahead and I did graduate from the University of Miami. So, but it wasn't easy. There was a time I was doing 3 jobs.
Wow.
And actually using that to pay school fees, and I had to go through junior college, and finally met a professor called Lionel Howard, who decided that I had enough brains to be a programmer. And when I went through all his courses in programming, including summer school, he managed to get me a scholarship into University of Miami. So that was a self bet.
Wow. How'd you feel? What were your emotions during that time? Because I'm sure you use a lot of what you've gone through in your life to kind of give advice and inspire other founders and entrepreneurs. Tell me about that moment emotionally when you decided to say, hey, I'm going to take the risk. I have no contingency plan. I have no plan B. Talk about that emotional bandwidth.
Well, some call it hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
or being knocked out or what have you, but it's just when you come to the realization that, hang on, I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
You know, dude, you're still alive. And sort of getting to see yourself, failings and all, you know.
Yeah.
It's that I call it nakedness. I don't mean it in the rude, but lewd way, but where you see yourself naked, you know. Dude ain't got jack,
Yeah.
you know. But then you awaken to the inside. You awaken to yourself, to the fact that, wait, hang on, I can walk, I can talk, I can communicate. I have internal unexpressed resources, and God has a plan.
Yeah. Simple. I love it. I'm right there with you. So people know you as a leader, a father in the country when it comes to investing in the whole ecosystem. Where does passion come from to really get into entrepreneurship and get into the startup world? And where did that whole passion come from?
Well, it's from these untold stories that I just shared with you, because I honestly believe, okay, that the future of Africa is being built by these young entrepreneurs that have aha moments with technology and use it to solve, problems that you and I, we take for granted sometimes, but are actually significant enough to have an impact. Um, and anybody, and I mean quite literally you, me, anybody that actually supports that cause, okay, will get two benefits. Okay. The first is the most important, which is the impact we will have on building, okay, the generations of Africans to come. That's our most youthful continent on the planet. It has the most promise in terms of geography, and boy, does it have the people. So it's sort of, that's the first reward, is the impact on the 1.3 billion people on that continent in 55 countries. The second, of course, is financial. I mean, this is not, I ain't talking charity, guys. We making money. All right. Let me give you an example. All right. Just last month, Stripe decided to acquire Paystack. Paystack was in 2015. Shala and Ezra came out, and in October, Stripe acquired that company for $200 million, validating, okay, our whole ecosystem through that particular move. So it's also about a decent return, okay, on decent money, both operative, decent return, but on decent money too.
I think you just made the case why we should bet on Africa. And I'm learning and growing in my increased knowledge of what's happening over there. In these times, what's your advice to a first-time angel investor over there on the continent?
Well, find yourself a group. Okay. I don't care if it's a syndicate or a network, find yourself a group. And make sure there's at least 5 of you. Not 2, not 3. Make sure there's 5 of you. Once there's that number, then reality sets in. And you guys will fashion out a thesis that says, this is why we're doing this and this is what we want to do. For us, when we did it in Lagos, we came together because first, we all wanted to get back to Lagos, and we still are. On Friday, I'm keynoting at the Art of Technology for Lagos, as we start to look at smart cities, for example. So that was sort of our first reason for coming together. The second reason was we all had experience and expertise that we wanted to continue to fine tune. The only reason I'm still coding today is because I engage with the developer community. So that was sort of the second. The third, okay, was to have fun. Okay, to really, you see me smiling all the time. I just finished a conversation with the founder of Kaba, and what's his challenge? Apart from talent, all of them have talent challenges, but he's trying to find debt finance at less than 2.5%. Now that's an interesting challenge. Okay, so that's the third thing. Okay, is have fun, and the final, of course, is make money.
Yeah.
So we're not a charity.
Right.
Okay, I want a return on anything I give, and I will give, but I want a return. That was the fourth reason. So make sure you know why you guys are coming together as a group of 5 or more. Okay, and then go hunting. There's a lot of amazing young talent out there building the future of the continent.
I totally agree with you about making money. I often share with young entrepreneurs and founders that don't glory in raising money. The goal is to make money. So that's to your point. I agree with you on that. So CIO, Green Tech Partners, Capital Partners, 50 angel networks across the continent of Africa in 33 countries, I believe. Tell me about your very first investment and how that was.
Oh, wow. It's a doozy. Now, I didn't know it was called angel investing, but in my previous life, I had worked as the head of research in IT for Marks and Spencer. And in building their very first website, I met this South African guy. And what happened was, I don't know how much you guys know about the history of Africa, but Mandela went to South Africa and Obasanjo went to Nigeria, just, about a year of each other. And what that meant was Oliver, which is my friend, went to South Africa, and I went, I headed into Nigeria. He comes up with the idea saying, hey, dude, we're going to do a comic. I says, okay, sounds good. And it says, well, we want to put all these African heroes in it. And what's going to happen is you got, West Africa, so you've got to do the Alaafin of Oyo, Mansa Musa, and some of our heroes, etc. Cut the long story short, by the time I end up in Cape Town, we managed to change it to a soccer comic, and that was my first angel investment, was in a soccer comic.
Wow.
That was a comic book. We started delivering. I remember the first 100,000 copies. Then it became 200. Then we went to 500,000. Then we got into 17 countries. And then Media 24 came calling. That was when I knew there was something called a partial exit. I think I put in $5,000 and I walked away with $250,000. And I'm looking like, guys, and I still got some of that. Man, give me more of this.
Wow.
Well, the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
So what happens next? Well, Ollie had started the company on animation. So they blew animation away, became the YouTube destination of choice, millions of subscribers. Fast forward, earlier this year, they got bought by Disney India.
Wow.
Okay, so that was the first and still the best.
Wow. With all of the success that you've had in Africa, what is still, in your opinion, missing with the angel network as far as the VC ecosystem, angel investing ecosystem?
Knowledge. People just don't get intangible assets. People just don't get knowledge assets. They don't understand how 2 kids are going to sit with a laptop and make $1 million. It don't make no kind of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what's got to happen is I've got to see physical goods. You're going to buy it from China. We're going to sell it in there, and we're going to make a heap load of money. Or I'm going to build a property. It's not. There are investors where that are building, putting infrastructure and everything else. But when it comes to service oriented, like software as a service, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
E-commerce. But when things are starting to hit, like ride hailing is hitting, like e-health is in your face, and you can see what's happened with communication, event communications, people are starting to stand up and take notice.
What trends are exciting you today?
Co-investment.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of, hunting in packs digitally, and it excites me no end. Earlier in the year, we created the Diaspora Angel Network, which is run by Gerard and Isabel Olisa Asher in London, here in London in the UK. And what it does is it co-invests with the angel networks you talked about earlier, across the continent, and they've already done a couple of deals. So I'm quite excited about the fact that they've done deals with Kenya, they've done deals with Lagos, just to prove, that things are going on. So I'm quite excited about that, and it's the fact that these deals are cross network deals that we hadn't historically seen. So we've got the Lagos Angels investing with the Southeast Angels because Dan's there with them too. And then Rising Tide, the women-only network, is joining in on the fray. And so we're doing quite some interesting deals.
It's powerful. Tell us about the genesis of ABAN and that whole creation.
Well, what had happened was through an All Boys network, we started the Lagos Angel Network in 2012. And yes, it is true. The chairman and I went to the same secondary school, but that's the reality of Lagos Angels. And we'd had some interactions with Ben White and the VC4A team, and we'd done some things together. One of them was bringing early stage investors together, ACES, the African Early Stage Investment Summit. So we'd done the first two when this man showed up, called Baibasal Tuntash, who was the vice president of the European Business Angel Network. And he had an invitation from somebody I now call my big sister. Her name's Candace Johnson, who at that time was the president of the European Business Angel Network. And it was an invitation to join them for Slush in Finland, in Helsinki. So Dotun, who's the chairman, and myself and a whole bunch of us showed up in Helsinki. Yeah, good. Cut the long story short, it was like, you guys need, a Pan-African business angel. Oh yeah, of course, here's a paper. We taught her that, and we know, we've seen some of the work, and so what are you guys doing about it? Well, we've been thinking, why don't you just do it? To cut the long story short, we went to Helsinki, a group of there were only 5 angel networks on the continent. By the time we left, I was founding president of the Africa Business Angel Network. So we then started work, and we currently have, like I said, 50 networks now in 33 countries.
Amazing. Congratulations on that and all this.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Your passion is contagious and inspiring.
Thank you.
COVID-19 has rearranged everything in 2020, all of it. What is your biggest advice, main advice for entrepreneurs now in this climate?
Stay, how do I put this? Steady the course. If you're doing the right thing, then it's about value to your customers. And that's where you should get the sense from of what you should do. Okay, it's easy for investors and others to tell you what to do, but the money is coming from the customers, and it's their lifestyle changes you need to watch. So it depends on what kind of solution you are providing in their lives. And that has to be consistent with the changes that everybody's ongoing. COVID has caused the death of distance. That's a positive thing, because it means that we can have sessions like this, but it has also caused a significant amount of economic chaos in the physical world, where touch and movement have become very extremely restricted, to say the least. So when we look at those, then it's about where in the industry chain do you play, and can you pivot to something that is emerging, because there are a significant number of new opportunities that are arising because of the fact that we are now in restricted movement situations.
Your mentorship is so important to I know to a number of founders and leaders. How important has mentorship been for you along your journey, and who were some of your mentors?
Well, I just talked about one of them, who I call my big sister, Candace. She's always just there, you know, and she always knows who to prod. Go talk to that one, you know, you should do it this way, and what have you. Just, you know, phenomenally amazing. He is the quiet one. David Rose is another one of my mentors. He's the founder of the New York Angels, and he's more the brainiac in terms of structural thinking and process of how a lot of this play out. So if you look at my latest thinking on valuation of African enterprise, for example, that was bouncing back and forth with him. And yeah, then you've got people like Dr. Sulaiman, who is the chairman of the Lagos Angel Network, but, you know, is also the chairman of the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. And was the first, he was the first Black person to head Arthur Andersen Accenture in West Africa. So, and unfortunately, he's passed on. But in blessed memory, the late Monsignor Pedro Martins, who saw me through a turbulent youth. And without his benefaction, I would not have the privilege of having this conversation with you.
Wow. Wow. As you project the next 10 years, next decade, I know you're a visionary, and vision is so critical as a founder, as a leader. Where do you see the continent in 10 years? Because you've seen tremendous growth over the last 10 years. Where do you see Africa and the ecosystem expanding in the next 10 years?
Well, the first is to think about the framework that is emerging around the Continental Free Trade Agreement, where two things will be critical, and that is movement. It will cause an interesting challenge because Africa is made up of cities, as you're well aware. The top 15 cities are responsible for nearly 50% of all consumption. So we're going to see Lagos, we're going to see Cairo, we're going to see Johannesburg, Nairobi, Addis Ababa expand dramatically as the useful population take hold. Why is that? Because the kind of urban infrastructure, we're talking about smart cities, providing the kind of life, especially as renewables start to mature as possibilities, and we start to put agri-tech, using different aspects we learn into play. The cities will become the magnets for the population growth. So it is services around that that I see to be very, very significant going forward. We're starting to see it in logistics. We're going to see it a lot in food. But by and large, it's all going to be about distribution.
What advice would you have for your 16-year-old self? After all that you've experienced in life over the last 30 plus years of investing and seeing growth in individuals, what would you say to yourself at 16, going back? What advice would you have for yourself?
It's the same advice I've given my son. Okay, and that is measure life not by money, but by time. Because that's what life really is. It is about how you spend the experiences. It is about the moments, the fragments, the long periods that make up your life. And the measure of your life is the improvement it has given to others that it has touched. That's what I advise. Other than that, just have a great one.
Wow. To go along with what you just said, I always share with people that if you want your dreams to be sponsored, love people. Love people.
That's all
Yeah,
it's about. We are one.
100%. TD, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to spend time with the Betting on Yourself podcast today, and obviously Empower Africa. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure, and I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
You have a great
You
one.
too. Cheers. I want to thank all of you for attending today. Your passion, your exuberance for the country really inspires me. I want to thank a few people, in particular Caleb Zipperstein, for planting a seed in me and really bringing a level of awareness for what's happening in the continent of Africa. Ezzy, thank you so much. And Jesse Schiff, thank you so much for all that you've done behind the scenes. And this was spectacular. I hope you guys were enlightened, awakened, become aware of what's happening in the great continent of Africa. And again, thank you to TD for his time and his wisdom. My pleasure. Thank you. You are the secret to your success. Take care.